Good evening. My name is Jeremy Ezrael Campbell. Welcome to my channel, Ezrael the Scribe, where I talk about history, the occult, and spirituality from the lens of my personal practice and my experience, as well as some research that I'll do occasionally on the subject. And today's topic is on evocation and invocation. And I'm not going to just talk about what they are. I'm going to explain how you can create your own. So if you're interested on learning, stay tuned. Welcome back. Okay, so today's topic again is on evocation and invocation. And if you're a practicing magician or have studied anything on witchcraft, the occult, evocation and invocation are terms that are used in those practices to explain an intention of calling an energy, calling a spirit, or calling a deity. Now, since my viewers I'm taking are very diverse, I'm going to try to put it from a lens of many different spiritual perspectives. So I'm going to first go over the definition. So evocation is when you call out to pull energy into a space. So say you're creating a ritual, you cast a container, a sacred circle, sacred space, and your intention is to make contact with a spiritual energy. Now you're not pulling that energy into yourself, you're pulling it into a space. And that is what is called evoking. Evoking the spirit. And often practitioners of the left-hand path and some on the right will use a scrying mirror, which is like usually a rectangle or circular mirror that's completely black. And with that, they can evoke the energies into the space and make contact through that mirror. Now, some will evoke the energies into space and do a tarot reading. Some might, if you channel or are a medium, you might evoke the energies to make contact that way. And to assist in the rite of what you're doing. Well, what's the purpose of your ritual and what magic are you doing? And so by evoking that energy in, you are allowing that energy to add to your own and your rites. Now, invocation is a little deeper. Invocation is you're invoking that energy into you. You're taking, you're calling to that spirit, that deity to enter your temple, your body. And I wouldn't say possess, but they basically can take over for a period. Now there's partial invocation where you state in the invocation, I invoke you only from head up, so that they only, enter that aspect of your body. Or some people say from my waist up, so they can see through your eyes, and you can see through their eyes, and you can taste through their mouth, as well as they can do the same with you, as well as use your hands. And then on the occasional full-on rituals where you're fully invoking the spirit, pretty much you tied to your silver cord leave your body and they assume your body. And usually that's for, such as in Wicca, those are like big Sabbath rites or purpose of different types of magic in the left-hand path. It's in order to work with that energy for a longer term. And so you're fully invoking their energy within you, awakening their gnosis within you, their knowledge, their current. And that current eventually becomes part of your current because you're awakened to it. You're connected to it. And so it doesn't mean that they have control over you, but you are connected to their energy. And I call that carrying their fire. Basically carrying their torch, because you are connected to their energy, and then their torch becomes a part of your torch, which is pretty much the all-encompassing torch, which is source creation. But your knowledge, your own personal gnosis, is awakened to their gnosis, and that is again invocation. And so with that said, there's multiple ways to create an evocation and invocation. And pretty much the verbiage is a little different, as you know, I stated before. With evoking, you're pulling them into the space. Invoking, you're pulling them into you. So part of that ritual, or the invocation or evocation you write, will state in there, I evoke or I invoke. You're setting the intention through word, and your word holds energy. Your word holds resonance. It holds power. So when you speak it, and you speak it with intention, you speak it with your energy. If we were to look at the energy of voice, it is so powerful. And so when you put that out there, you're making it happen. You're letting the spirits that you're calling to know what you're wanting to do. Now, going back now to how to do that, how to create that. Okay, so there's multiple ways to create these evocations and invocations, and well, actually there's two. I break it down. I try to simplify things as much as possible. You can make things as complex as possible. It's easy to do, but if you were to break it down, how do I create this? There's two ways. One, you could research the spirit, the deity, the current of energy. You could research through historical findings. You could research through other people's workings. You can research, Wikipedia. That's a common modern tool. And then from that research, if you compile like several pages of research, find the main aspects of that spirit, that deity that you resonate with and that you see as part of the ritual you want to do. So for example, if I were to work with Hecate, I'm trying to open a door of opportunity. She's the keeper of keys, according to historical records. And she's the guide, as she had helped Persephone guide her through the underworld. She can do the same for others. And so she opens doors, she guides when needed, and she gives clarity. So from just that story of her with Persephone, I've got that little bit. Then if I do further research, she's the all she's the goddess of witches and sorcerers, depending on historical texts that they, basically they view her as the queen of their gnosis. And so we can write that down. And then in other research, there's she is the goddess of herbs and spirits. So basically all concoctions are hers. So right there, we've got some big, key points. And in other historical writings, like I'm trying to recall off the top of my head, if it was in ancient Greek and Roman writings, people would leave offerings at the crossroads for her, because she, as she had guided those travelers on the path, she was the goddess of the crossroads. And from stories of Greece, Zeus, after the war with the Titans, Zeus looked to her as still ruler over heaven, earth, and sea. And so, boom, we got some big, key points from just that verbiage. So then one other point before I continue. Often in imagery, we see her with a big black dog, and apparently the dog is her companion, and it's often looks like a Doberman, but it's her companion. So the invocation would go like this from that information. Great Goddess, Queen of Night, you who hold the keys and the torch, you whose companion howls at the moon when you are near, great goddess of witches and sorcerers, all concoctions of herbs and spirits are yours, great protectress on the road, great lady of heaven, earth, and sea, I evoke or invoke you. Please guide me on this path with your intention. Enter my temple of flesh, awaken your fire and gnosis within me, so that I might honor your torch and key, and do the same for others. O Draken Homegas in nomine Draconis. Boom. So from that research that I gave, we have an invocation. And the more you say it from your heart, the more you repeat it, the more it comes from memory, the more you're able to go deeper with it, and deeper with her current, and deeper with working with her. And it can be quite profound and quite powerful, because they are very receptive to those type of energies of us calling to them. Who doesn't like to be honored in that way? So with that said, that is one way to use research. The second way to create an evocation and invocation, and I've done this with quite a bit of my working, because some of these deities and spirits, dragons, there's only like maybe one page written about them, like Tannin or Teotin or Lotan, some of these dragons of ancient times. And one way to do that is to create a ritual to connect to that energy. And it's almost like building a relationship. You are recording, so to speak. And how you would do that is you would, on a daily practice, call out, light a candle, get an image that relates to that deity, that spirit. If you can find a sigil that is tied to that energy, that current, then you can use that. And I would paint it on a canvas. I use 8x10s. These are great. You can get these really cheap. You can get like a pack of 5 for $5 at the dollar store, or you can find them sometimes on sale at the craft store. And I'll start with, and what's great about these 8x10s, you can, and this isn't a, I know this isn't a video on sigil making, but using your ruler, 8x10, you measure 4 across, 5 across, mark each side, then mark the middle, and that'll help you get you a starting point on making the sigil on here. And then once you've drawn it, then you can paint the back part of it, paint it black or red or however, and then paint the sigil the color you want to paint it. So that's a quick way to do that. So, but using that as a tool, you can use that as a focus of your intention of contacting the energy, and then have your journal nearby so that once you do make contact, and how that will appear is many different ways. If you're auditory sensitive, where you're able to channel, then one thing you'll notice is you'll start having these thoughts that just come up in your mind, and that are in relation to the intention you're speaking of. You might start having this, I don't want to say you're going to start hearing voices, but you're going to start hearing voices. And it's not, and it will be either a different tone, or it will be a thought in your mind that is all about, the spirit. The deity. Though, I do this practice myself, and I've gotten to a point where after I do the evocation and invocation, I'll hear, pick up your pen, write. And so I'll pick up my pen and I'll just start writing out everything that's coming, that flows through. And next thing you know, I've got 3 or 4 pages of writing of what this message was coming from this current of energy. And often it's, sometimes it's about them, if I'm just starting to work with them. Sometimes it's about things I need to work on myself and my own life, and how to honor their energy. And it usually, when you call to a spirit or deity, they're gonna be like, hey, why did you ring my doorbell? Why am I here? So if you do an invocation or evocation, you are gonna want to have an intention set forth of why you called them. And don't do it just because, oh, I want to see if it works. That's never a good idea. Just doing something just for the sake of doing it, you might as well shoot yourself in the foot, because that's very disrespectful. You're pulling in currents of energy out of their path in order to, be a support or for a purpose with you. And if you don't have one, you're just doing it because you want to see if it's cool. It's a party trick. Like if you're doing this at a party and everyone's drinking and they're like, hey, let's conjure a spirit. Yeah, it's cool and all until you do it. And then if you don't have an intention behind it, that's when bad things happen. You know, it's kind of like, it's when you have an intention and you call out to the spirit and they come on their accord, and by having an intention, it's kind of opening the door for consent to, it's okay to call me going forward. If you do it without intention, you're going to lose that consent, and it's going to damage the relationship you have with that current of energy. So that's how important having an intention is with this. Because again, all of this, all of invocation, evocation, has to do with building a relationship with the energy. Even though your intention is not to do so, it's like every conversation you have is some form of a relation. Whether it's work related, whether it's friendship related, whether it's lover related, whether it's all different, conversations have some form of relation to it. So you have to look at it that way, and you have to approach it with the same respect you would as a physical person that's sitting next to you. How would you want them to treat you is you have to look at it that way. Because from what I've learned in my experience is they will approach you as you approach them. If you open their gate to their world, call to them, and then run in with guns blazing, it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. You don't do it. If you want them shooting back at you or down the road, it might appear that they're nice now because you got guns on them. But man, when your back is turned and your guns are down, and it's not good. So with that said, we're heading into the way of invocation, evocation etiquette. And I think that's a big thing that we don't think about when it comes to evocations and invocation. I see some traditions don't feel you need to create a circle when calling to spirits and bringing them in. Some traditions, such as grimoires, will talk about creating an external circle to pull in those spirits to where they cannot leave until you banish them. And then a lot of modern traditions will have you pull those spirits into the circle with you because you're wanting to work with them directly. So you have to, I think there's a key element of importance of having some kind of circle container. Not only is the container holding that energy and helping kind of keep it raised, but it also keeps it contained. And if you're in a building with a lot of other people, if you're out in a park and there's a lot of people around, or if you're in a space of the public, keeping that energy contained will help. I kind of see it as keeping the chaos contained, keeping order within the chaos and chaos within order. Because often if you call energies for the first time and they are not familiar with you and they don't like to be disturbed, they can be quite disruptive. I've had lights turning off and on by themselves, walking into my apartment, having the TV turn on by itself, them letting me know I'm here. I've got lights that change color, and it's interesting, when I've worked with different types of spirits, they will resonate with a specific color. And it's interesting because historically some of these spirits will be tied to certain colors, like red or gold or blue. And it's when I'm working with those type of currents or spirits, my lights will change to those colors. And I'll be sitting working, all of a sudden my lights will change to another color that I have control on my phone, but I didn't have my phone in my hand. But it lets me know who just arrived. So, and it's kind of, I know it sounds maddening, but part of the etiquette of having that circle is containing those energies to your space and not others. What else? One other main etiquette with the full body invocation is, if you're have not done it in the past or have not done it ever before, ask a friend who's into your path working, or have someone watch over you while you do it. They can be outside of your space, because sometimes when we are outside, we don't see what's going on within. And we'll get, from my experience with it, it's kind of like you're the co-pilot and they're the pilot, and you can kind of navigate somewhat. You can sometimes take the wheel, but a lot of times it's them working through you. I don't recommend doing it and then going out. Like, don't say, hey, I'm gonna do an invocation and then go out to a club. I mean, you can, but I would make sure you're fully back into your body before leaving your safe space, because you want to be coherent of your actions. Now, the partial invocation, it's you're pretty much full driving, but they are still there with you. And when you carry their fire and you consistently on a weekly basis invoke their fire, they're pretty much walking with you. And I have a fire that I carry that's representative of source creation, which some would view as the formless deity, the source of all. And that's where like all the gods come from, is that source. And it's basically the fire that was given to me by source. And so when I carry that fire, I'm like a representative of source creation. That does not mean I am God, but I am an aspect, am an emanation of creation, walking with his fire, her fire, the formless fire. And so with that said, that's where I talk occasionally about the draconic magi, because the magi were all about the sacred flame. So the invocation of that gnosis, that partial invocation, it's one way to consistently connect with that energy. And so and how that relates to the etiquette of invocation is you have to be respectful to their energy as much as your own. And then once it becomes your energy, you have to be respectful to yourself. You have to remind yourself. And that's where a lot of growth starts to happen. The changes of how you speak to other people, how you realize when you say something, you're like, did I just say that? So that's how powerful invocation can be. Invocation can be quite transformational. And evocation, it can be quite powerful as well. But I will say it's more so for connecting to get messages and to more so pull at that energy and to combine with yours for certain rites. And that's it for raising energy for opening doors or a lot of things. Love, a lot of people, well, what do you want? Why are you doing this magic? Why are you doing ritual? And you can focus on something external, which is, I want love, I want this job, I want this career. And so your energy is quite powerful, strong, but pulling in or evoking other energies to combine with it, divine, because these currents of the deities are actually also emanations of that source creation. So you might ask me, well, why don't you just only call on the source creation? And it's because these deities represent different aspects of source creation. So if you're wanting to focus on gaining more knowledge, who of source creation would represent that. If you're wanting to gain a fiery energy of fertility, and also transformation in your life, you might call on Bridget, the goddess of the hearth, or the forge. She's also a fire goddess, fertility. If you're wanting to contact, someone that's passed on, someone that's deceased, you might call on Hecate to guide you to make contact with that spirit. And so she might guide you to the crossroads of this world and the next, and you'll commune and be able to make contact. So those are some examples of connecting through to deities through these evocations and invocations. And it's not for everyone. It's not. Some people on the left-hand path believe there are no gods. There's only source creation and self. Same with Christianity. There's only God and self. But when you start looking at the divine emanations that we all are, if we all are children of God, the divine, then so are the emanations of source creation. We're all emanations of source creation, basically. So we're all, I heard this recently and I resonated it very well. It said, we are all source creator having an experience. Because we're not, because for a longest time I would state, We're fragments of the source creation. And no, we are source creation having an experience. And even though we're a fragment from the source, we are still source. So with that, we should, any obstacle, we should be able to overcome, and in some way or fashion. Now, it's going to be challenging as hell, but we should know that we're not alone in this. We are connected with source. We walk with source creation. And I'm not trying to persuade you right now. I'm just saying that's my perception on it. And we're the divine emanations of source creation are the gods, basically the different aspects of deity that represent different aspects of what we see in our world. And that was what our ancestors did. The Celtic ancestors, the Sumerians, the different Egyptians, they had a deity that represented different aspects of life. And that deity ruled over those aspects of life. But that deity still came from source creation. And so by learning about that aspect of life through those deities, we're getting the divine concepts behind it. And so it can be quite profound. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. If you have your own thoughts on evocations and invocations, please share them below. I'm always curious and always learning myself. Forever a student, to be a better, I'm going to say we're all teachers, but we're all students as well. There is no one or the other. So if you liked this content, please hit like and subscribe. I'm going to be providing more content like this going throughout the year. And I wish you a wonderful rest of the day and safe travels always.